What are you doing?
I'm scouting for new strategies for Whispers from the Maze.
Find any?
No, nothing.
Well, don't worry, because as a matter of fact, I got some right here.
Oh, okay, cool. Hey everybody, Elio here with another video for the Altered Trading Card game, this time playing some new cards from the new set, Whispers from the Maze. The core of our deck and core combo piece is the Fire Avatar. First name... Look, everyone always gets mad at me for mispronouncing names here, but this is actually a name that in my local dialect, the one that's spoken here in my office, is pronounced Aoli. Actually, Aoli, the Fire Avatar, and Aoli is awesome, and Scout is awesome. And the first thing you'll note that you can do with Scout is benefit from Atsadi. Atsadi cares about hand costs, so when you play an Aoli or another character for their Scout cost, Atsadi will trigger even though you are only paying a few mana, which is awesome. But we are not playing Atsadi, we are playing Basira. This is partially because we want to try to benefit from Aoli's counter-giving abilities, but also because Scout combos with Floral Tent. When you play an Aoli in a tent, you can order the triggers so first, you helping hand another character, then Basira triggers, putting a counter onto Aoli, and then you trigger the Scout Send Me to Reserve ability, which just removes a single counter from Aoli and boom, a 1-mana 5/4/5. Scouting from within the tent is perfectly safe. And I love this because it's a sick combo, but also because I really like Floral Tent and Basira and I love an excuse to play her. Every bit of text is great, and if you aren't comboing with a scout character, you are still protecting boosted characters or anchoring big cheap things like Bravo's Tracer or a seasoned character. When we don't draw Aoli, we can't replace her, but we can recreate her in the aggregate. Redundancy is the lifeblood of a strong and consistent deck, and Helping Hand means we now have 6 copies of cards in the deck to remove fleeting. Tolarian Skater gives us more ways to combo with Floral Tent, though admittedly not nearly as powerful. A 1-mana 2/2/2 Basira trigger can fit you into tight spaces to win the game. Moving on, we do need to consistently be able to trigger Basira to make her worth playing. Fire Rabbit, Isumboshi, and Chiron all do this with different ways of putting boost on characters. Sometimes with Isumboshi, you can stack your triggers so that an Aoli Scout not only stays in play, but it remains boosted so that it is protected by the Tent ability. With all of our fleeting removal, we need powerful plays to benefit from repeated castings. Red, Bravo's Tracer, and Bravo's Blade Dancer all benefit from repeated plays. Additionally, when grown big and tall, they are also great anchor support targets for a Reserve Floral Tent support ability. For our final non-uniques, we have 2 staples, Haven Sarangar, just a Bravos draw card staple, and Auklet, a Basira powerhouse. Finally, for my uniques, a Yeti that makes tons of boosts, a Jinn that can ramp and boost and kill, and a Lady of the Lake that was born to be a Bravos Vanguard. That's the deck. Let's jump into some games. Okay, up against Treyst and Rossum, Axiom Hero. So here, I would like to keep the Aoli combo. And with that, I want something that I can be playing turn 1 to actually compete on the board. I'm not looking to just ramp and get this boost support in there. That would let me do a Aoli protected next turn. It's unlikely that they're going to be able to threaten kill the Aoli anyway. So it's either red or Bravos Blade Dancer. The Blade Dancer is a lot better when you don't have other boost support. Red really shines when you have something to give it boost, and I'm not going to turn 1 red in Aoli. That's kind of a waste of the Aoli. So I'll keep the Blade Dancer, the Aoli, and the Floral Tent. I think there is an argument for not keeping one of these combo pieces and instead keeping the red as the 3rd card, but I feel pretty solid with this. I'll open up with the tent on one of the sides. That way I have the opportunity to see which lane they go into so that I can put my Blade Dancer in the appropriate lane. They don't play a character out, they do show a hooked, and I received another 1-drop in the Fire Rabbit. I would like to not compete over this right lane, but they may be able to hook me in there anyway, and if they do that, then hey, we get another resupply, and the Floral Tent only costs 1 mana, or we can anchor something with the support ability. So I'll play the Fire Rabbit to the left, and either maybe they have a character to compete over this, in which case they'd overflow in the reserve, which I'm fine with. But more likely they're just going to hook me over. We'll take a 1-0 lead and put this tent in the reserve. Okay, here we drew an Auklet, which is fantastic against Treyst. Definitely not getting rid of that. And this Issun Boshi, it's an easy Issun going back. They open up with the Frozen Delivery, and what they see is a unique Ada Lovelace that fills the reserve like normal, but really fills it. They get 2 cards in there with the resupply, plus they sabotage an ender. So this is a really sick Ada Lovelace. Rather than leave this tent exposed, I'll go ahead and play it out, and if they want to sabotage whatever comes out, that's fine. I mean, I say fine. I prefer that they didn't, but I think that that's probably going to be happening. So they do. They get rid of the Tracer, and luckily they put this into the right lane, which is really where I didn't want to have to fight over. So I'll go Blade Dancer left, and we'll trade lanes here. They have a lot of sabotage support here, which is scary. Maybe they have Tinkerbell too. Who knows? There'll be a lot of 3-drops though. But new Treyst has some tools. We could have here, by the way, had the option of using the Aeoli on the Blade Dancer and taking both lanes. But I'd rather get the benefit of the Aeoli actually removing the bleeding from this Blade Dancer. So rather than take the lane that turn, I'm going to hold on to it for later. And this turn, we'll open up with an Auklet, try to keep them off of the Treyst ability. And yeah, we could go right and be tent protected, but then that means we lose our Aeoli combo, so we'll go left. I'm thinking back to this previous turn and really wondering if I should have used that opportunity to get the advantage there. We would have been up 1-2 more compared to them, where we would advance and they wouldn't have. So that's on my mind. Definitely something that, if I can stop a lane and advance the lane to do that, like it's maybe good, and maybe I'm being a little greedy trying to get extra value out of this, especially since I see all these sabotage effects from them. But yeah, they play a Sap Sniffer. This guy, this little weirdo is what he is a stall play into the Auklet, which probably means that they have a removal spell here. There's some new removal in this set, but it also may just be a Keylon Burst, which does hit Auklet. But with that in mind, I don't want to blow this tent on something here, which is an even worse position than last turn. And so we're just going to pass. And yeah, they burst us. They take another lane, and now we're going even. But hopefully we can keep them off of traceability. Depends if they sabotage this Auklet. Like, they have the hard choice of either sabotaging Auklet and protecting their reserve, or sabotaging the Blade Dancer, who potentially be a repeated threat against them. Here, I will put back this redundant Blade Dancer. If they do get rid of this Blade Dancer, I'm happier Aukletting anyway. Especially since we can actually keep the Auklet around with the tent dancing. Here, especially since they're on 4 counters, I'm happy to play this Auklet here to the left lane, which will leave a Fire Avatar if I want it on the right. And it stops them from actually going off with Treyst here. Unfortunately, we can't both Aeoli and get this passed to where we're advancing, as well as keeping Aeoli around. So we'll play this Aeoli here, boost the Auklet up to let it do its thing again next turn and stop them from advancing. But we need to use Basira on the Aeoli to make sure that we advance on the right. Now, we could use the Skater here and just ditch something to take that advance. I'm getting a little greedy with my cards, thinking that I'm going to be able to take the longer game, but Treyst comes online eventually, and I think that in hindsight, I should try to take some of these advances while I can, because while I can make very big things, they have a lot of sabotage to put us off our game plan, and they're going to have so much card advantage themselves that I should probably be taking some of these lanes while I can. But here, I'll put the red back, and luckily we're first this turn, so we can once again hopefully keep them off a Treyst by playing this Oglet to the left and stopping these two Amelia Earharts. As we see more Treyst in the new meta, it really shines, or shows how much Oglet shines here, and why it is one of my favorite cards in Basira. Because not only are we stopping them from going off on Treyst this turn, we're also going to be forcing them to overflow in the reserve. And here, we'll play our Tracer out to the right, which is very likely going to be enough to take this by itself. But if we need to, we could always use the Skater. But no, they're just putting this out to replace their current reserve, which I'm fine with. I mean, these are probably upgrades from the Amelia Earhart, but we're double advancing either way. We just need to get across the finish line now. Okay, here, they're fighting over grass here. So I could take the Sarangar and be a little bit more defensive, or the Chiron, which is a little bit more even-handed. But the Sarangar also draws us cards eventually, so I'll put the Chiron back. I do want to keep this Tent. It enables our combo. It basically replaces itself with the card draw, and we're at so much mana. There's also the option that turn of not manning at all, but I do plan on casting this Aeoli from reserve eventually, and that's a big 5 mana that I'm going to need to spend. So the more mana I have, the better it lets me do this. I say this, of course, they're immediately going to sabotage it. But we're going to be hitting resupply effects here, and we have 7 mana in hand as is, so we're probably going to be able to make use of this. But yeah, I'll open up the Sarangar on the right. I don't want to expose my Floral Tent immediately to the permanent discard effect of the Grems. They go Mechanic left, and now we'll go ahead and play the Tent to the left. And depending on what we get here, we may be able to put everything in our hand with the discounted Skater. They delivery out a Cylinder, which works great with this Grems. I'll go and play out the Sarangar to the right, which will mean that we're now tied with them and easily blocking them. And all we really want to do this turn is try to advance one lane, which now we can play the Skater for cheap, and that will let us... We're not going to win this left lane either way. We need 3 water, and at most we're getting a 3/3/3. So I'll spread the love over here, putting 1 counter on the Sarangar and 1 counter on the other guy. We're actually doing a true scout here, by the way. It doesn't matter, because we're not trying to keep it in play. Putting it in the tent lane doesn't do anything, because we're not going to be putting a counter on the Skater. But this puts us up by 2, which, no 1-drop is going to give that much mountain in Treyst and Rotham, I don't think. And yeah, just 1 more lane to go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 3, 4, 5. We have a lot of mana here. I think we can mana 1 more time here. So I'll mana the red. Start with Sarangar right, so that if they sabotage, we potentially have the ability to draw this card. If we don't win this turn, I want to make sure that I have plenty of things to play, because we have so much mana now. But they play a unique Haven Bouncer. Lets them put things in reserve and sabotage as normal. They don't have 2 landmarks, so they're not going to resupply as well, but this Skater is going to be gone. We see an Avalanche. So given that kind of forces our hand. If I just play this Tracer out, then Avalanche hits both of our guys here. So I'm going to play the Skater out, and then spread the love here, putting a counter on the Sarangar, as well as a counter on the Skater. That way, the total power there is greater than 4, and they can only ever hit 1 thing with the Avalanche. This also starts to put power into the left lane, so we're now winning both the right and the left. And Really, I'm just trying to squeeze them. They play Foundry Mechanic there, and with that, if we play a Tracer to the left, we'll be up by 5, which should be enough, where even if they Cylinder plus Grems isn't going to be enough. So they need to hit a 1-drop with this Frozen Delivery, which they do not. And yeah, that should be enough. Opponent keeps taking game actions, making me question whether or not I did my math correctly. But no, they play the Grems, they sack the Cylinder, they make a bug, and we block them on right and advance on left. GG. Okay, up against Teija. All right. We got a Aeoli, 2 Fire Rabbits, Helping Hand, Skater, Chiron. I'll keep an Aeoli. It's basically a Helping Hand that also can do really sick things in this deck. And since they're going first, I could keep the Skater and plan on like just trying to compete in a lane, but depending on what they do, like Chiron Fire Rabbit can sometimes take 2 lanes versus them, which would be sick. Like if they did a, either if they open like with the Spindle Bastion, or if they just did a Spindle Harvester, I could have a very powerful turn. So I'll keep Aeoli, Fire Rabbit, and Chiron. Especially with no fleeting targets in hand, I don't think there's a reason to keep this Helping Hand yet. But the other consideration is Skater, but Chiron just kind of acts as a cheaper thing here, which gives me more flexibility. They play Mana Druid left, which with Chiron, which is a 3/3/3 with Basira, and Fire Rabbit, I actually get 4/4/3, and I can edge them out here to take the left lane and prevent their advance. They're up 1-0, trying to learn from the lessons of last game a little bit and taking our advances where we can. And against Teija, where sometimes they get some like lopsided positions from things being re-anchored, you can find yourself unable to take a lane sometimes, and you are playing 1 lane at a time. So I may just have to dance them all the way down from here, which is why it's important to win one of those early lanes. Here, I have 2 Aeolis and a Yeti. I'll put back one of the Aeolis, and I'll open up with the Yeti. Depending on what they do, I'll Fire Rabbit here or here. They go to the left lane with the Aloe Vera, which is great because I can Fire Rabbit to the right, take an advance, and put 2 counters on the Yeti, one with Basira and one with itself. So we trade a lane. This 3/3 is beatable, and we're ourselves starting with a ton of power on the right lane, which, sometimes Bravos keeps things around. It's not just Teija. Okay. Tracer red. I'm running a little low on cards. I could Tracer Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at the end of turn, I'd be having to discard from reserve, which is potentially awkward. I could also use red with the Yeti and the Chiron, and maybe the Aeoli if I need to. But that'll put a ton of counters onto the red, and pretty much assure that I win this right lane. And with the Aloe Vera here, this lane, maybe greedy to try to fight over the left lane. If I can stop this left lane, then it's awesome because I stopped they're probably going to anchor this Aloe Vera, and it's going to be on water next turn. But to stop that, we can assume that they're going to get to at least 7 here. And that'd be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know, it's risky. I kind of just want to dance them down and start building up this red anyway. Like if I start getting boost on this red and take advantage of the Yeti while I have it, it will mean that I myself will have a 2-mana play that I can repeatedly do that's going to be very big. So I'm going to put the Tracer back. It feels like the riskier thing, whereas this is a better long-term game, which Muna doesn't historically have a ton of like sabotage, so something like red can last a very long time. And I say that, and then I'm immediately sabotaged by the little mouse, which this is a really sick card from the new set that I've been really impressed with. I really like Jack Frost, and I think that this kind of operates as a similar thing where Jack Frost is exhausting it, but this is exhausting that option and usually replacing it with something worse. So now we have our red, which I will still drop down, put some counters on it, and if I need to, I'll AoE it. But ideally, I don't have to do that this turn. I don't think I'm going to have to, since I have so much power here. But I'm really glad that I didn't keep the Tracer line, because I think that would have been, well, actually maybe would have been fine. But if I Tracer, they maybe actually play out the Cuddly Corgi. Yeah, no, I don't. It's too risky to play the Tracer when we don't have the Chiron to support it as well. So yeah, here I don't need to play the Fire Avatar, and so I'll just go for it. Save this Fire Avatar where I can keep the red around. Doing our thing, trying to dance them down. I'll discard the Yeti here. I'd rather have card draw and this big red. Not a great beverage. Now here, I get rid of the Chiron, but I think maybe I'm supposed to get rid of the Sarangar because I don't know when I'm going to get this in reserve. And so I don't know when I'm going to be drawing with this. And so the Chiron actually gets boost and like can really grow our red. It just seems like that might have been better. But open with the red there, follow up with the Sarangar, and maybe I Sarangar here now immediately. No, I don't want to do that. I want to use the AoE so that the red sticks around, and I'll put all these juicy counters onto the red, and I'll keep dancing them down. This card draw itself is pretty huge. It'll probably make sure that I have enough fuel to last for the rest of the game. We do have the AoE in the reserve, which means that we often want to keep manaing so that we can eventually play it. Here, I will mana the Swifty, and depending on what they do, I may be able to get a good Auklet off. But if they open up with a card from the reserve, I probably will save the Auklet, which, yeah, they open up with that there. I have the mana to both red and AoE, and so I'm going to open up with red, which will threaten this right lane, and the AoE is it's gonna be difficult for them to stop us from taking one lane if we just do this. But they do play Requiem, which I could have, because they didn't open up with the sabotage effect, the red was safe. I could have maybe opened up with something else, but if I do that, then I can't save the red for another turn. And so like the value of it isn't that great. So they get rid of our red, which is fine. We can just Sarangar on the left and once again trade lanes. And now we get this in the reserve, which maybe that card draw will mean something, maybe not. Here we draw an Isumboshi and a Blade Dancer. We are fighting over, or trying to advance on water here, but I think it's important that whatever I'm doing, like I need to be advancing and blocking, not just solo advancing, because if we both advance, if they, they take a 2-1 against us, then we lose this ability to dance them down. And because of that, I'll put back the Isumboshi and keep the more evenly statted Blade Dancer. But I'll open up this turn with an Auklet on whatever's resupplied with the Aloe Vera, which is this Ogun. And I'm just going to try to take this left lane and dance them down. They should ideally be overflowing their reserve a lot this turn. The fact that they're playing cards out here, I think is good. Like I'm a little worried that they're going to have a sleep effect. But if they do that, then we can maybe double advance next turn. But I feel like I'm likely able to have enough power to stop whatever they try to do. So, this Corgi keeps getting bigger. Here I'll play the Blade Dancer so that I have the option of knowing whether or not I need to use the boost on this Fire Rabbit. And Yeah, they get a ton of stats there, which would block us. Fire Rabbit unfortunately doesn't give water, so I will need to use the boost on it. But that's fine. We'll do this. We'll put a boost on the Blade Dancer. See what we draw to see what we get rid of. Our goal will just be to win this right lane. We draw an Auklet, which makes getting rid of the reserve Auklet an easy choice. Here, I'll get rid of Tent so that I can potentially... Like, this lets me Aeoli, Blade Dancer, Skater. I can also Auklet Aeoli. You open up with the Spindle Harvesters, which hopefully are surprise Auklet in hand. One of the advantages of getting rid of one on the reserve is they don't play around necessarily the Auklet from reserve, and yeah, that locks him out. And yeah, GG. Okay, up against a Lindiwe, and we got a lot of small things. Okay, I'll probably keep a rabbit. Probably not going to keep Isimboshi. Definitely want to keep Blade Dancer. This is the best thing in the hand. I could do like Blade Dancer Skater Red or Blade Dancer Rabbit Red, Blade Dancer Rabbit Skater. Let's try to go in on the Blade Dancer. We don't need to spread out our boost, especially with this removing cleating from itself. So we'll do Blade Dancer Rabbit Skater. Give us some flexibility in how we play. Blade Dancer will tie on the right with a sacked thing, so I'll go Rabbit left and be ready to trade left lanes with him 1-1. If he didn't sack it, but he actually plays a unique Ortis Cadets, which is a very good one. Gets to draw a card on enters, and we'll double advance by playing the Blade Dancer on the right here. And I do actually boost the Rabbit so that I block him from advancing to take a 2-0 rather than a 2-1. That does mean that the Blade Dancer is a little bit smaller, but it gives us a slightly bigger advantage and like hedges a little bit against sabotage. I think that with the rest of my boost that this Blade Dancer is going to be big enough anyway to take any lane, so that's my thinking there. I do put back a Isimboshi there over the helping hand. Eventually able to play this Blade Dancer forever. But I will start with a bunny on the right. I do get Tooth Fairyed. You know, I could have opened up with Blade Dancer, but I mean, maybe I should have. If I had done that, I'm vulnerable to Off You Go a little bit, but like it still doesn't have fleeting, so it's kind of fine. Yeah, it's gone. It is what it is. I'll play the Skater though, which the advantage of that is that, you know, if I had played this Blade Dancer and they sabotaged the Rabbit, I don't have a great follow-up play. I can Helping Hand, but this lets me double advance, which is pretty good. Let me go up 4-0. Gives me a lot of time to get those extra lanes. Here I draw Tracer and Yeti. So I could keep Tracer Helping Hand, which seems like the obvious thing in putting back the Yeti, but if I do a Yeti Tracer play, it's kind of like I'm prepaying for the Tracer. Like I get the boost that the Helping Hand would give with the Yeti coming down, and I start next turn with a thing of comparable size to the Tracer that also will boost additional things. So it also means that I don't overflow my reserve, because if I do Tracer Helping Hand, like I can't play anything else. I can't play the Skater, and I have to overflow. So this lets me save everything nice. So I'll put the Helping Hand back. Open up with the Yeti on the right, since I'm going to be playing the Tracer into that lane, and Tracer is slightly lower in mountains and is higher in force, so we're almost out of resources, flying by the skin of our teeth. But this should be an easy win on this lane, and hopefully the next turn as well. And then we just need to get one more lane after that. This is pretty sick. This is what we came here for. I will not mana anything. Can open up with Tent on the left side. We hit a 2-drop, which is perfect. Lets us play that onto the Yeti side. Get double boost here. This right lane should not be being beaten now. They only see 1 mana on our side. They do still play out a Lantern, though, to make sure that this is fought over, but it's not going to be nearly enough. As we play the Aeoli out for 1 mana, remove... Well, I can draw the card, just put a boost on the Yeti, and yeah. Put the boost on Aeoli, gets removed with the Scout effects, and it stays around. GG. Those are the games. Next time I will be playing a brown deck, and I will be playing even more cards from the new set. But I hope this was a good preview of a combo that many of you may not have heard. So yeah, thank you for watching, and if you enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing. Thanks.